Hey YouTube, welcome back to Griffin Grills. We got a special video today. One of the daycare workers where my son goes requested this. We're going to do a Boston butt. And the common misconception that a lot of people think when you say a Boston butt, they think it's actually pig's butt. It's actually the shoulder, which has a lot of connective tissue in it like a brisket. So we'll cook that down with some low heat and some thyme. And we're going to get this out of the packaging, trim up a little bit of the fat because we do have a pretty heavy fat cap on the back side. We will keep some of that fat to insulate the meat, but we really don't need all that. So let me get this out of the package and we'll go over the recipe I like to use for my spritz / injection and go over how to do that. So let me get this out of the package and trimmed up, and then we'll meet you back here when we make the spritz. Alright, so we got our pork butt trimmed up now. There really wasn't a lot to work with on the top, just getting little stray pieces off. The main thing is on the bottom where the fat cap was. Since that's the way it's going to sit on our grill, that's going to be what we call the bottom, and this will be the top. I left a couple of places here where you can see how much I trimmed off. This was a piece of the fat that came off. It's about a 1/4 inch thick. The main thing you want to look for is the color. When you have the white color like that, that's all fat and you're not going to need near that much fat. You want some of it to render into the meat, but if you've got solid white across the top, that's not what you want to see. What I like to do is get kind of these pinkish areas here where it's still got some fat mixed in with the muscle. And the main thing I did is I made a cut a little too deep, and you can see how that spot's a little redder than the rest of it. If you start seeing that, just kind of back your knife up, go back over, then just clean up all your loose pieces. Anything that you can grab a hold of, just go ahead and give that a whack off. A little off the top, just like at the barber. Alright, so now that we got this butt all trimmed up the way we're going to want it, we're going to start working on our spritz / injector, because I use the same liquid that I spritz with during the cook as my injection. So I'm going to go over that recipe with you right now. Alright, so here's all the ingredients we're going to use for our spritz / injection. I just used some store-bought apple juice, some apple cider vinegar, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, and some hot sauce. And we're going to use olive oil and a bourbon brown sugar rub by Weber as the rub to go on our meat, and the oil is just to help that stick. But for right now, we're just going to concentrate on what we need for our spritz / injection. And I normally do about 2 parts apple juice to 1 part apple cider vinegar. So if we're using a 1/2 cup measure, half, 1, half, 2. And that's going to be plenty for our injection and our spritz. Same thing, using apple cider vinegar. Half. And 1 cup. Now for the Worcestershire, you don't want to use too much of it. Mainly I just go by color. You can see how it's kind of an orangey color right now. So I'll just drop a couple of spritzes in there. Usually about 3 turns of it will get it that nice kind of ambery color that we're going for. And then, of course, we want to finish it off with a little hot sauce. About 8 dabs ought to do it. And what we're looking for here is the sweetness in the rub will be complemented with the savory and spicy of the injection and the spritz. So all those flavors will combine to give us some good pulled pork that we can use for barbecue sandwiches, pork tacos. If you want to do some hickory fries, throw some shredded pork on top of some fries. There's endless combinations you can do. And the good thing about a pork butt is it's a very forgiving piece of meat. So if you're just getting into smoking, this is one of the better cuts to learn on. Alright, so now we got our pork butt over here. We're just going to fill our injector. And what we want to do is kind of see how the grains are running. You can either inject with the grains or against the grains. It's all personal preference. I just kind of find me some thick spots. Shove that needle all the way in, but make sure you're not coming through on the other side. And then squirt. And actually pull the needle out as you're injecting. The first couple times you'll do this, you'll notice some spots that hump up, and you might even have a little bit of juice leak out. That's perfectly fine as long as you're not making a big mess everywhere. Should be pretty good. You'll actually see the meat start to balloon up in spots where it's filling up with that moisture, but we're going to need a lot of moisture in this meat so that this doesn't dry out. And you don't have to inject it, that's all just personal preference. I think it gives it a little bit more flavor. So, and it doesn't take very long. Just working it around different spots. And right there you can see where I hit the bone, because this is a bone in. So we're just going to turn it to the side a little bit and give that nice little squirt inside there. And unfortunately, one thing that I forgot was this is raw meat, and I'm sticking this needle in there and going right back in here. So what I'm going to do is, after I'm done using this, I'm going to wash the bowl out and remake some of the spritz. That way I can spritz it with liquid that wasn't contaminated with the raw pork. Alright, so here we are with our pork butt. We've got our fat cap side here that we're going to put our olive oil and rub on first. And you don't really need a lot, just enough to give it a little bit of coating. I like to wait until I see a nice little shimmer across there, and that lets me know that I've got plenty of oil on there for my rub to stick. And you don't have to use olive oil if you're worried about the price of it. You can use mustard. Some people even just use water. We probably would have gotten enough moisture on there from our injection to where we wouldn't have needed the olive oil, but I just like it because to me it seems like it gives it a little bit better of a crust. That's all kind of subjective. Alright, now that we've got that rubbed down, we're going to go with a light coating of our rub. And we want to make sure we get a nice even coat. And it's kind of hard to see on camera here, but I'm actually holding my rub about 12 inches from the meat. That way it gives it an even distribution when it comes down. We want to make sure we get the sides too. That one might be easier to do when I flip it over. We'll stand it up on this end. Give it a nice coating. And there you can see our bone. And a little bit more on the bottom side just for safe measure. We'll flip that over. Come back and hit what's going to be the top as far as orientation on the grill. Want to make sure we get it in all the little crevices. This side here, we couldn't get from the other side. Now that it's flipped over, it's a little bit easier to get to. I don't know about y'all, but I think that looks pretty spiffy. So now we're going to get the grill set up with the slow and sear. We're probably going to let this rub sit on there for at least a couple of hours. One, because I've got some things that I need to get done real quick. And two, it's going to help to absorb in there and penetrate into that meat and give us a little extra flavor. So I'm going to get this thing wrapped up and put in the fridge so it can sit. Also, to me, it seems like you get a little better smoke ring if you take meat and put it in the fridge for a while and let it sit. And then when you bring it out and start smoking it at low temperatures, you get more of a defined smoke ring. We're not really going to pay much attention to that since this is going to just be shredded up at the end anyways. But you do get a little bit of presentation. You can find it on a couple of pieces, especially with the thick bark and that nice pink ring in it. So let me get this wrapped up and put in the fridge and put away, and we'll be back to put it on the grill here shortly. Alright, so here we are outside. I got the slow and sear all set up, loaded up with some apple wood, and since we're doing this cook at night and I don't want to stay up all night, I'm using some Kingsford long burning charcoal. It seems to do a little better on the overnight cook. It burns a little bit more consistent, and the bag states that it burns 25% longer. I tend to believe that because I've done quite a few overnight cooks. Well, we're going to go ahead and get this pork butt on. You can see our temperature inside the pit is about 226 right now. That will drop whenever we put the meat in. I have my bottom vents about halfway open, and I have my top vents completely 100% of the way open. We'll dial those in as necessary, and hopefully I'll be able to get them dialed in enough to where we can keep it between 225 to 250. If it gets up around 275, that would be okay. 300 would kind of be pushing it. We do want to keep this a low and slow cook. So let's go ahead and get our pork butt onto the grill. Alright, we have the slow and sear loaded up with a quart of water. We also have a water pan in the bottom here with about a quart and a half, I would say, in there. And we're just going to take our temperature probe and get this in the thickest part of the butt toward the middle. But you want to kind of stay away from that bone because that bone is going to give you an inaccurate reading. Alright, so now that we got our temperature probe in, the internal temperature dropped way down, we're going to get the lid closed so we can get the smoke cooking on our pit. Like always, our pit probe is about 2 inches from the meat just to give us an accurate read inside of the cooker. So we're going to let this go. We'll probably come back out in another 2 hours and spritz it with our spritz that we made, and then we'll just keep doing that until we enter the stall where the meat actually reaches a point where it stops going up in the temperature and it pretty much stays consistent. It's not too uncommon for the meat to just rise up in temperature when you start cooking, and then at one point it'll just reach a point where it stops and no longer starts to climb. That's what's called the stall. It's basically the meat is sweating out and it's releasing temperature, and the only way to get through that is to either turn your cooker up, basically give it more heat to kind of push through that stall, or we'll wrap it up and that will help us to get the temperatures through the stall. So we're going to go ahead and give this a look on our instant read, and you can already tell the temperature inside the pit has gone back up to about 209. Internal temperature has jumped up to 44. So we're just going to keep an eye on that, and we'll come back out, check it, and just keep checking our vents. And we're back outside. It's about 7:45, so the butt has been on the grill for about 9 hours now. So we're going to take it off and wrap it. We did end up pushing through the stall last night. I fell asleep. That's perfectly all right. Sometimes that happens. But we're just going to wrap up our pork butt today. And what I got is 2 layers of tin foil. Gonna remove the probe, and we got a nice crust built up on this, and you can see the bone is starting to pop out on this side. So we'll just put her back down on this tin foil, give it a final spritz. And we're going to go kind of heavy on this spritz because once we wrap it in foil, we won't be able to get to it anymore. We'll even spray the tin foil a little bit. Alright, so now that we got our butt wrapped up, the bone is on this back side. You can kind of feel it through the tin foil. This side's nice and squishy. So all we're going to do is put this back on the grill and let it go until we check for tenderness with our probe. And we want to try to get this probe back in the same spot as we can, or pretty close to. I think that's pretty good. Alright, now we're just going to close the lid down, let it finish on out. Alright, so here we are out at the grill. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning, so this pork butt was just shy of 12 hours on the grill. We're just going to open it up and check for tenderness. A lot of good color on that wrapping, so that's a pretty good indication. Just take your meat probe and you're just going to stick it in through the tin foil. And this is double wrap, so once we get through there, we're just going to feel how tender it is. It should slide through with minimal resistance. The internal temperature, we can check it, is about 205, but temperature is really secondary to what you want to look for. What you really want to look for is how easy that probe slides through the meat. So we're going to go ahead and get this off and get it into our pan, and we'll let it rest in the cooler for about an hour, hour and a half, just to let those juices kind of settle back into the meat. And this is also the same pan that we'll be shredding it in, and we'll dump any juices that are in the foil into the pan and let that mix in with the meat. So we're going to set this in the cooler for now, and then when we come back, we'll have it shredded up and show you the final product. Alright, so here we are back inside with our final product, and I pulled this piece to the side and I just wanted to show you this smoke ring. I hope it's coming through on camera, but all that around the top edge is the smoke ring from where we left that in the refrigerator for a few minutes. And then our end result was just absolutely fantastic pork. So let me get this wrapped up in some tinfoil on the top, go deliver it, and see if they like it. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like, share, leave your comments, and let me know what you think I should do next. I'm always up for suggestions and trying new things, so if you got something you want to see, just go ahead and leave it down in the comments. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.